So welcome to another episode of Spike Chats. We're very grateful and very pleased today to have a very special guest, Elham Fardad. Elham, welcome to Spike Chats.
Thank you, Rene. I'm delighted to have been invited.
Elham has the most compelling and the most inspiring story to tell. And I want to take you right back. Right back. You came from Iran. Tell me a little bit about your background.
Thank you, Rene. My best friend said to me today, "Are you really going to go from Hertfordshire into central London today with all this snow? How are you going to make it?" So this is what I said to her. I said, do I need to tell you, my father grew up in the harsh winters of the county of Azerbaijan in Iran. He was born in a very poor family, and his village actually didn't have a school. So every day in the harsh winters of Azerbaijan, he had to run to the next village with often snow up to his waist. He had to run to the next village in order to go to school. And why did he have to run? Because there were frequent tales of kids getting attacked by wolves in the middle of winter. So I said to my best friend this morning that no, a couple of inches of snow is not going to stop me talking to Rene today. So thank you for your invitation.
And there are no wolves in this studio, I can tell you.
No.
But, so from humble origins.
Indeed.
From very humble origins. So how did you get to come to the UK?
I think although we came from humble origins, I was blessed to have a father with a vision. From a young age, he did very well academically, got a scholarship to go to the top university in the country, worked for ITT, and he always shared that vision and a very strong set of family values with me. So part of that vision really was to give us some opportunities that he didn't have. Although I was the first child in both families, and as a result, I didn't have some of the privileges that my younger cousins and siblings were lucky enough to have, and I think it was a good thing that they had those opportunities. But for myself, the biggest gift and opportunity my father gave me was himself. As my first mentor, he shared his thinking with me. We came to the UK for two reasons. Primarily because the Iran-Iraq war was very severe at that time. We moved to the UK in 1986. If you stayed in Iran, it was like Russian roulette. Every night you were being bombarded on, and it could be you next. The country was deteriorating education system, health system, and he felt that in order for us to make anything of our lives, the formula was education.
And that's clear, and we'll come back to that in a moment. But really it was leaving a place that you'd always called home.
It was.
A place that meant a lot to all of you, and a journey into the unknown. Really is what it was.
It was, but you know what children are like, or at least I was like that. I saw it as a sense of, as an adventure. Mm-hmm. I had read so many things about England, and I was fascinated by it. I saw it as an adventure. Of course, I would miss my country and my friends particularly, but I was ready to discover it. And we went to Birmingham. I went initially to a school which was government-run for migrants in order for them to learn enough English to then be able to go to mainstream comprehensive schools.
So this school that was run for migrants, where did the children come from? Where does all this...
Everywhere. It was really varied. There was one other Iranian, and I remember when I first entered, I was 13 years old, and she had been there for more than a year. And she came to me looking really happy and relieved, saying, "Oh, I cannot believe you're Iranian. I'm so glad." She said all this in Farsi. So with my broken English, I said to her, I declared, "Actually, I am not here to talk Farsi. I am going to integrate, and I am speaking only English." 2 weeks later, they told me I'm ready to go to the local comprehensive school.
And that was your determination to speak English,
Yes,
to fit in,
yes.
to be part of a completely new life.
To fit in, but even more than that, to discover what other kind of people there are.
So you're now at your first British school.
Yeah.
How did you find that?
In some ways, I loved it, and in other ways, it was challenging. It was a pretty run-down, comprehensive school in Selly Park in Birmingham. So resources, my biggest fear was running out of books because I read books like there's no tomorrow. And those days, this is 1986, there was no internet. And content costed more, relatively speaking. So pretty soon their library ran out of books for me to read. And the demographic of the school was different to what I was used to. There were some English people I was learning about English culture from. They were girls from all over the world. Again, I would ask them questions about their country of origin.
Was it a girls' school?
It was a girls' school. Yes, that was not debatable. I was, from my cultural background, it was a given that I would go to a girls' school. So it was a journey of discovery on the positive side, but also huge adjustment to make.
So this was a secondary school.
It was. I think it was third year. That was my first year as a third year.
So you got through. Did you stay until the sixth form?
No, I stayed in that school because we moved a few times.
Sure.
We moved a few times. I then the following year went to a school, a comprehensive school in Bartley Green. Similar type of a school, but bigger. Mm-hmm. I did my maths O-level straight away 2 years earlier, and that kind of got a bit of attention in the school. Yeah, I enjoyed studying. But the cultural adjustment is what I found difficult. There were boys, there was all sorts of things.
So this comprehensive school now was mixed?
No, it was not mixed, it was girls. But
Still girls, yeah.
the boys were way outside the gates, and I wasn't used to that.
Of course. Of course.
There were cultural adjustments.
Of course.
I knew what I wasn't allowed to do and what I didn't want to do. And I got my first taste of what it is to be authentic and to keep the good elements of your culture, but at the same time fit in and mix and integrate.
And by now, did you have any ideas on what sort of career you were after? Or were you just studying?
I knew what I wanted.
What did you want?
I wanted to be a scientist. I loved maths and science. However, and I got the GCSEs. When I did my GCSEs, all the results were right. Then my father declared that, look, he's a visionary, right? And his logic is usually sound. So if I disagree with him, I say so. But on this occasion, I didn't disagree. He said, look at our parliament. In Iran, the parliament is full of doctors and engineers. Look at their parliament. It's full of accountants and lawyers. That tells you what professions might be favorable in this country. You're good at maths, and accountancy is a female-friendly profession. I reckon you should do accountancy. I thought what he said was logical, but I must admit, with hindsight, I wished I had challenged him more. That's one of the things about different cultures. Coming from an Asian culture, we are not always encouraged to challenge authority. I wished I
And your father was authority?
Oh, absolutely.
Did your mother have a voice?
She did, in her own way. She was in charge of different things. My father was very systematic and the visionary, and my mother was the creative. And she did that very nicely, actually.
Very good. So now you're progressing, you've taken your GCSEs, you've scored well in the maths, science, all those that you needed. What happens next?
So what happened next was unexpected, because my parents separated. And it was tough, and it was a difficult separation because it was unexpected. And I found myself supporting my mom, standing by her, because in certain cultures, women need the support. And I felt as the oldest child, I should take charge. So I took charge. I stood by my mom. I supported her. I worked. I earned money.
How many brothers and sisters?
One younger brother who's 6 years younger. And I felt responsible for my mom and my brother. My father tried to help us, but without going into detail, I felt that I should take charge of the situation. So I did.
So you've got a separation, some big choices around further education and career. How did it pan out there for you in terms of education?
So educationally, I think during my A-levels, things went wrong. This was my first moment of truth, actually. I learned that no matter how strong a base you have built in your life, no matter how hard you've worked and what you've achieved, that you could, in fact, anyone could lose everything. So I learned, because my A-levels didn't go as expected. I didn't go to many lessons at school. There was really chaos within the family. And financial difficulty, all sorts of challenges. So I realized that anyone could lose anything. That could happen to anyone. And from a young age, I learned not to judge others for that, because it could happen to anyone. So my A-levels, in my book, in my opinion, didn't go well. I found myself at the age of 18 without the A-levels I deserved, without a visa, with no money, and pretty much no family.
And was your plan before taking A-levels to go on to university?
Absolutely. Undebatable.
So what was the plan now?
Well, I'm a bit stubborn, or determined, if whichever way you see it. So I stuck with plan A. I wanted to go to university, and my A-levels were good enough. I had a few offers from universities, but I couldn't pay any fees. I wouldn't be counted as a home student. I had no money. And no matter how good I was at earning money, teaching maths, selling stuff, I did everything. But I handed over the £4,000 that I had saved. I gave it to my mom because she needed it. She didn't ask for it, but I gave it to her.
Let me be a little bit clearer here.
Yeah.
So you're doing jobs on the side. You're having to keep things going. You're supporting mum by taking time out of your studies to earn money to ensure that the home was secure.
I felt that we need some buffer in terms of savings. So I saved £4,000, yeah.
And that jeopardised your ability to deliver the right results and also to pay some of your way through university.
Yeah, definitely the working took me away from my studies, but also my own mentality. I think I was very angry at the situation, and I rebelled by not going to lessons. There was definitely my mentality that hindered me as well.
So now you're facing, you want to go to university, you've made the call to support the family. What do you do next?
So I thought the only way I could go to university is if I was counted as a home student. And I camped outside Birmingham City Council offices I had planned 5 days, but it only took 3 days. So I camped out there and I said I'm not going anywhere until I talked to the decision maker. I had just learned with my 18-year-old head, I had just done A-level economics. So I had learned about the concept of the decision maker. So I said, I want to meet the decision maker. So after 3 days, I made them understand what I mean. Just to get rid of me, I guess, they took me to the decision maker, who in a very brief meeting said, I'm going to help you. Because I told him not going to university would be worse than death for me. And I'm asking you to count me as a home student. And I don't remember what he did, but he fixed it. And I will forever be grateful to Birmingham City Council.
What did that teach you? What was the learning from that? Because that's quite a tough call, quite a brave decision, and there's no guarantee of success.
I learned that I can negotiate.
Very good.
And that learning actually gave me the confidence to negotiate throughout my career.
So you're now a home student.
Yes.
You're going to university.
It was great.
Where did you go?
I went to Hull, because having studied A-level economics, I had heard about the North-South divide. I heard the Northerners are friendly, and that is cheap in the North. And I couldn't afford London, where I had some offers from. So I went north, and it was great.
You did 3 years there.
I did.
What did you study?
Accounting and finance. And I've always been blessed with really good friends in Birmingham, in Hull. They invited me for Christmases at their houses.
Very nice.
A lecturer called Phil Burnett really took me under his wings and believed in me at a time that I really needed that.
But you're starting to fulfill many dreams at once. The dream of education, but the dream also of understanding what it takes to be part of a new culture, part of a new nation, and to find yourself not just assimilated, but fully integrated.
Yes, indeed. And I joined in.
So explain a little bit about that, because you're leaving one culture and you're fully embracing another. And you're away from home now, so you're on your own.
Absolutely. There were moments when I had to define what it is to be authentic and keep your culture and your origins, because that was important to me, and what it is to fit in, mix and integrate. I came to the conclusion, even to this day, I believe there isn't a trade-off. You can keep your authenticity and origins, but at the same time fit in, mix and integrate. So I did that by going out with these new friends, by learning about their thinking, by joining in with their families. But there were things that they might do that I wouldn't do, some things.
Did you find it reciprocal that you're trying to make friends? Were they trying to make friends? You're trying to... There are things that are important to you. Were there things that are important to them that they kept with? How did you find that experience?
Actually, I think people have a lot more in common than we realize. We had plenty in common. We were 18-year-old girls, and we had plenty of common interests. And they tried very much to be my friend. They tried very hard to welcome me and make me feel included. They knew the challenges that I was going through with the family situation and the financial situation. They did very well to be my friends. They were wonderful.
You did 3 years at Hull. What happened as you was coming towards the end of your time at Hull, just towards your degree? Did you now focus on career, focus on jobs?
Absolutely. That was the plan. The only thing is, I discovered that the visa that I have is a student visa. And it means that I don't have a work permit. So here is this 21-year-old with a 2-1 from a university, not allowed to work. And I don't do very well when I'm not allowed to work. So it was a tough time. I got depressed. I became very anxious about it. And it was a difficult time. So again, I'm a very lucky person. So I went to college and chose to do ACCA exams because that's the only accounting body that at the time allows you to study full-time without having a training work contract, which I wasn't allowed to have given the visa situation. So I studied at college, and one day I was passing the notice board, and there was a competition for Accountancy Student of the Year. So casually I thought, why not enter that? Really casually. All you had to do is give them your CV and write an essay about why you want to become an accountant. And this is pretty hard for someone who 3 years later wanted to be a scientist. So I thought, once again, it's important to be honest and authentic. So I really wrote down what accountancy can do for the world and what accountancy can do for a company. And it was mainly around increasing brand value, governance, sound financial management, and driving the performance of a company, and how I want to do that in the future. And I was shocked when I won the award. Really fell off my chair. What it meant was that 3 partners from this big firm of chartered accountants called Haynes Watts came on an evening, gave me this award. There was Chamber of Commerce and the press there. It was really unexpected. But it also meant that they sorted out my work permit situation for me.
So again, you've hit a difficult moment. You've gone out of your way
Yeah.
You've pushed as hard as you can, and luck has come to you.
Yeah.
The harder you try, the harder you push, the more lucky you get.
That's exactly what it was. Yeah. I'm a very lucky person.
So now they're sorting out the visa situation. What happens next?
So they help with that, and I get my work permit, get some work experience with them. I was honest with them from the beginning. I said, look, my heart is in industry. In fact, I want to work in a manufacturing company because I love engineering. You know, I want to work in an engineering environment. That's where my heart is. But they gave me a few months of work experience. They guided me. They were wonderful, wonderful people. I then went on to work for Compass and Severn Trent. In fact, my first graduate job was as concessions accountant for Compass. I was really proud that in my first job I'm handling 300 concessions for Compass. And
This was in the food
indeed,
business.
indeed. So it was a responsible grown-up job,
nice.
and I took it very seriously and did pretty well. However, the problem at that point was that I didn't have the money to pay for my further accounting exams. It's like expensive to, you studied weekends, so I could study in my own time during the weekends, but I needed somebody to pay for the college and the books and the exam fees, which were really expensive. So I needed a training contract with a company, and Severn Trent provided that opportunity.
The Water Authority.
Indeed, indeed. So I qualified as an accountant with Severn Trent, and I remember my boss, Glyn Palmer, was very supportive, and I said to him, look, on qualification, I really want to go to a company that's dynamic, that's a meritocracy, that gives me opportunities to grow and get promoted frequently despite my young age. And I went and found myself my first financial controller job in GE. So when I told Glyn, very, very guilty, I felt very guilty.
How long did you spend at Severn Trent?
2 years.
2 years, okay.
2 years.
And where were you based?
In Birmingham, in Solihull.
Okay.
And I told Glyn, and I felt very guilty about telling him that I'm leaving, because he was a brilliant boss. I've always been blessed by really great bosses and wonderful colleagues. Really, I've had great mentors.
But you were after something, weren't you? You were after something.
I was after his blessing, I think. I don't know whether it was permission to leave. I wanted his blessing.
So there's a loyalty there.
Totally. I'm very loyal. I'm very loyal. Even to this day, I'm very strict about which corporate partners my charity works with, because we need to share values, and I feel determined that once I work with a corporate partner, I don't really want to go to their competitors. I want us to have deep relationships. So back to the story, I told Glyn about the financial controller job offer I have from GE, and his eyes lit up. He said, that's the company for you.
Great.
I said, is
and
that
big of him.
very good of him? Very good of him. So he gave me his blessing, and he was very happy for me. We kept in touch for years after, of course. And GE was therefore the big break at the age of 25 to get the financial controller role.
And GE is tough.
Oh, it was wonderful. It was wonderful.
How long did you spend with GE?
A few years. I remember the first month was Six Sigma training. I called my father and I said, Dad, this is the best job in the world. They're paying me to go to these Six Sigma classes. I would do this job for free. I love this job. He said, don't tell them that.
Good advice.
Yes. So GE was amazing, and they promoted me every 12 to 18 months. They put me on the Advanced Financial Leadership Program. I was flying.
What did you learn about yourself? It's a vigorous and tough environment, but you clearly thrived.
Yeah, it didn't feel tough. If I had to describe how it felt like you're flying. It was wonderful.
How long did you stay there?
I think it was about 4 years. And during that time, I went from financial controller to head of finance for Europe and Asia. I went on a ton of fantastic leading practice training. And importantly, I worked with really amazing leading practice people from across the world.
So after GE,
So after GE, I had by then got married, and my husband's job moved to London. And I wanted really, from an emotional perspective, from a family perspective, I made a decision to leave GE and get a job in London. So I got my first head of finance role at a news corporation. And that role worked out very well. Again, I had wonderful bosses who I'm still in touch with. And the MDs there, the group CFO, were very, very supportive.
an entrepreneurial culture at News Corporation.
It was, and I think I enjoyed that, but what they might have, or at least the division I handled the finance for, might have lacked a bit of structure. And I came in with my GE structure, if you like. Absolutely. I think I remember that at some point I highlighted that, look, in your operations, I've taken the liberty of calculating your revenue leakage. It's 15%. You can't carry on like this.
Significant.
You can't carry on like this. So the MD straight away said, do you want to take over that part of the operations? I said, yes.
So up until now, you're female. You're from a different culture, different background. Did you ever feel from your time at Severn Trent, GE, and now News Corporation, did that ever stand in your way at all?
Being female and ethnic minority?
Yes.
Do you know, I had been working and progressing at 120 miles an hour.
Yes.
I didn't even have the time to think what could hinder me.
Yes.
And that I am female and ethnic minority. It only occurred to me what disadvantages that might bring when I was nominated at EY for the BME program, BME Leadership Program, which is for high-performing directors. And I remember in the class, I was looking around thinking, but I've got to where I have. Why do I need to be here? How is this going to benefit me? But I was so wrong. Actually, being on that program made me realize, my goodness, how much more I could have progressed if my mentality and my interpersonal skills and ways of doing things were different. I realized that I myself have been actually hindering my own progression, and I've been making things more difficult for myself than they needed to be.
A lack of awareness?
Yes.
And was that because you were so head down, focused, working hard?
There was an element of that.
Yes.
There was an element of that. But also it was simply a lack of education in that area. And that's why we are training these young people within my charity, Migrant Leaders, in these areas.
If you look back, and you're being pretty tough on yourself here, but if you look back, what are the one or two things you might have done differently?
Yeah. I think above all, confidence. I knew how to seem confident, but deep down, little things. For example, if there were senior people in a meeting and I had a real potent point to make, and I had the evidence to back it up, I didn't always challenge the authority. That hindered outcomes and hindered me. At other times, I was very rigid in my thinking. I would make detailed plans about how things should go, and I wasn't flexible enough. So there were things that hindered my progression.
From News Corporation, you went to EY, did you?
I did. In News Corp, I went on to be a finance director, and
For the first time?
for the first time. In GE, the finance manager role is the title they give to someone who's head of finance.
Yes.
So I was already fulfilling that role in GE, but finance director roles were in News Corp, yes.
You went to EY.
Indeed.
You've done really well with EY, and they've done really well with you. Sometime during this period came this initiative for Migrant Leaders. Tell me a little bit about how did it all come about?
So in some ways it was iterative, and in some ways there was a moment. So I've been you can imagine, from my background, I have been mentoring young people from deprived and underrepresented backgrounds for years and years. And these were maybe 25, 30 people, in a number of years. Then in 2017, the Parker Report was published, and I looked at the numbers. The Parker Report, as you know, looked at the ethnic diversity of UK boardrooms. I looked at the numbers, and with your analytical mind, you can't help do a quick mini extrapolation in your head. And I realized that despite the good intention of leadership teams, despite the investment they're clearly making, that the numbers will not look sufficiently different in 20 years' time. That we needed to look at the root causes of this challenge and to really decisively address those root causes. And migrant leaders emerged from that.
And from those small but necessary beginnings, where are you today? Give me an update on Migrant Leaders. Where does it stand today?
Rene, since my childhood, my family know when their hearts sink when I come up with my big plans, which, by the way, I have always delivered on. I'd like to point out to them. But I always come up with grand plans which take a lot of work. And I did the same with Migrant Leaders. And Migrant Leaders is the first time in my life that even with my biggest imagination, it has surpassed my expectations. Within 18 months, effectively, we've got 200 director-level mentors from 95 FTSE 100 and leading firms.
Outstanding.
Credit to these volunteer mentors who are giving their time and support to me and these mentees. We've got 155 amazing mentees between the ages of 16 and 21. Mm-hmm. And the talent we've discovered has even surprised me. Examples. There's this 16-year-old kid who migrated from India. He's got 16 GCSEs, all A's and A stars. I didn't know that's even possible. He declared in his application that he wants to be the best investment banker London has ever seen. And at the end of the interview, I asked him, just out of interest, what do your parents do? And he said to me, my father is a bus driver. Another kid, she wanted to do medicine, but her family culturally were not so keen. I think they had other plans for her. So we had to actually talk to this family and to say, look, I understand your cultural background, but you've got to let her fly. And they listened. And she's now studying medicine in Cambridge. There are other kids who are not so academically gifted, but have got a ton of leadership potential, and they will make amazing contributions. So we take them as well.
So, an appeal to our members, on our database, who you've given them a really lovely description, flavour for what migrant leaders do. How you're helping to give opportunities to those who deserve it, but may find it difficult to do it on their own, by themselves.
Absolutely. In fact, if you calculate the odds, these kids, from the kind of backgrounds they come from, they just do not have the insights or opportunities to fulfill anywhere near their potential.
And what you've made very clear through your story, how it's got to here, is everyone can do with a little bit of help at some stage in their career.
Absolutely.
And for all of those who have had a little bit of help, then perhaps it's incumbent on us to give a little bit of help to someone else.
Absolutely.
As they say, it costs nothing for a candle to light another candle. So this is a message for everyone who's listening, everyone who hears this. How do they get hold of you? How do they get involved in this Migrant Leaders?
First of all, you can go on our website, migrantleaders.org.uk. Mm-hmm. We have our social media platforms, Migrant Leaders. Mm-hmm. You can email me at efardad@migrantleaders.org.uk. Mm-hmm. And really what we need at this stage is more than mentors, we need to continue to form partnerships and get a sponsorship from the large corporates. We've been lucky enough to get that partnership from Anglo American, our first corporate sponsor, and they've been amazing.
And a huge shout out to Anglo American.
Absolutely. And not only they've sponsored us, which is involved financial contribution, but also they are working with us. So in November, for instance, 65 of our mentees went to their London office, and Anglo-American senior executives, leadership were there giving insights to these kids, helping them understand what Anglo-American does, what it feels like to work in a big corporate, and to see these young kids by the end of the conference saying that Anglo-American is a great company and one day I want to work in Anglo-American and can I get work experience in Anglo-American? And it was wonderful to see that.
There are many other organisations, many businesses, from many different sectors and many different reasons who care.
Absolutely.
What an opportunity.
Absolutely.
What an opportunity to help those who deserve a little bit of help, who may well be their future employees or customers of tomorrow. So alongside this podcast, when we're releasing it, we'll put the website details down and we will ensure that you've got all the email addresses you need. But please, a little appeal from all of us. This is an amazing initiative, the Migrant Leaders, and it's gone from nothing to something to special in no time at all.
And we've still got big plans to increase our impact. And really, my biggest objective out of Migrant Leaders is, of course, to help the young people fulfill their potential. But it's also my way of giving something back to Britain for welcoming me and giving me the opportunities that this country and the British people have.
What a perfect place to leave. Elham Fardad, it's been our pleasure, it's been our privilege.
Thank you.
We wish you so well for the future, but even more than that, we salute you.
Thank you, Rene.
Thank you very much indeed.
Thank you.
This has been another absolutely outstanding and really inspiring session of Spike Chats. It's Rene Carriel. Look out for us. We'll be back very soon. Last year, I released my book, Spike. What are you great at? In the world of Spike, there are no losers anymore. Everyone has something they are great at. Now you can get it as an Audible book from Amazon's Audible, read by me and the people contributing their stories whilst you're driving, at the gym or walking the dog. Download it now from Audible.